Now, after lymph, let us discuss other important components of the lymphatic system, which are lymph vessels, or lymphatics, and lymph nodes. Starting with lymph vessels. Just like blood vessels, lymph vessels are also tubular networks extended throughout the body, but as mentioned earlier, these are quite delicate vessels as compared to blood vessels. And we know the diameter of blood vasculature lies between micrometers to centimeters. Similarly, lymph vessels are also non-uniform, and their diameter lies between micrometers to millimeters. Lymph vessels, or lymphatic vessels, or simple lymphatics, you can call them by any of these names. And this vasculature is mainly formed of lymphatic capillaries, collecting lymphatics, afferent lymphatics, and efferent lymphatics. I'll discuss each one of them, together with describing the organization of lymphatic system. So, these lymphatics arise from the interstitium, where the initial lymphatic vessels are microscopic lymphatic capillaries with a diameter of about 10 to 50 micrometer. These lymphatic capillaries form a network of anastomosing tubes in most tissues. Their wall is a single layer of endothelial cells with an incomplete basement membrane. Just like blood capillaries, they have clefts or slits in between endothelial cell linings. Some of these endothelial intercellular clefts are greater than equal 14 nanometer wide, so that interstitial proteins can readily enter these lymphatic capillaries. These intercellular clefts are thought to act as one-way valve, allowing fluid to enter the lumen. These valves are named microvalves. These valves are generally opened when lymph pressure is low and are closed when lymph pressure is raised above interstitial pressure. The endothelial cell lining is tethered to the surrounding connective tissues by radiating microfibrils, called the anchoring microfilaments, composed of protein fibrillin. When there is excessive filtered fluid in interstitial space, or in edematous tissue, the tension in the anchoring filaments helps to dilate the initial lymphatics. The initial lymphatics then drain into collecting vessels. Collecting vessels collects lymph from more than one lymphatic capillary and feed into afferent lymph vessels running behind major blood vessels. These are very important and critical vessels, as they ensure the entrance of lymph into larger lymphatics, that are mainly afferent arterioles. These afferent vessels resemble the veins of the circulatory system, as they also carry valves like venous vessels. These valves are called the secondary lymph valves. These semilunar valves are the flaps of smooth muscles that direct the unidirectional flow of blood through lymphatic vessels. Through these afferent lymphatics, lymph then enters the lymph nodes. These lymph nodes are the glandular structures that filters the bacteria, toxins, and other unwanted substances from the lymph before sending it back into the blood. And then lastly, the vessels that carry lymph away from lymph nodes are called efferent lymphatics. And these efferent lymphatics are structurally similar to that afferent lymphatics. So, these were all lymphatic vessels that make up a complete lymph vasculature. Now the next component of the lymphatic system is lymph node. As mentioned earlier, lymph nodes are actually the small and round clusters of lymphoid cells. Appears as round swelling along the path of lymphatics. And these nodes act as filters. That means these nodes cleanse the lymph from any foreign or waste product. But how do they do so? Well, lymph nodes perform this function as they contain many lymphocytes and macrophages that fight invading microbes and cleanse the lymph passing through these nodes. In approximation, around 700 lymph nodes are present in our body. And if we talk about their distribution or location, then we say lymph nodes are present along the course of lymphatic vessels, but mainly they are found in regions of the elbow, axilla, knee, and groin. Lymph nodes are also present at certain points in the abdomen, thorax, and neck, where many lymph vessels join. Now, after their numbers and distribution, we will try to learn the structure of lymph node. Although lymph nodes vary in size and shape, they are generally bean-shaped and less than 2.5 centimeters in length. Each lymph node constitutes masses of lymphatic tissue, covered by a dense connective tissue capsule. The structures inside lymph nodes are arranged in 3 layers, namely cortex, the outer one, medulla, the innermost, and paracortex, layer or area between the cortex and medulla. The cortex of lymph node consists of primary and secondary lymphoid follicles. That are the small masses of lymphatic tissues. Primary follicle develops first, so called primary. When some antigens enter the body and reach the lymph nodes, the cells of the primary follicle proliferate. After the proliferation of cells, the primary follicles become the secondary follicle. The active proliferation of the cells occurs in a particular area of the follicle called the germinal center. These follicles have the potential to produce plasma cells, and so play a role in the initiation of antibody responses against bacteria and other foreign antigens in lymph. Then paracortex is in between the cortex and the medulla. Paracortex contains T lymphocytes. T cells receive signals by dendritic cells and activates a chain of immune events. Next is medulla. The medulla contains B and T lymphocytes and macrophages, which play a very vital role in immunity against pathogens. The lymph node receives lymph from 1 or 2 lymphatic vessels, which are the afferent vessels. Afferent vessels divide into small channels. Lymph passes through afferent vessels and small channels and reaches the cortex. It circulates through the cortex, paracortex, and medulla of the lymph node. From the medulla, the lymph leaves the node via 1 or 2 efferent vessels through its hilum. There are more afferent vessels supplying the lymph node than efferent vessels draining it. Therefore, lymph becomes somewhat stagnant. During this slowed movement, macrophages and lymphocytes can examine the lymph more closely. The lymph passes through several lymph nodes before it is totally cleansed. So, this was about the structure and circulation of lymph nodes. Have a look at its functions now. We know that lymph nodes serve as filters that filter bacteria and toxic substances from the lymph. By this, filtration means when lymph passes through the lymph nodes, it is filtered. That is, the water and electrolytes are removed. But the proteins and lipids are retained in the lymph. Also, the bacteria and other toxic substances are destroyed by macrophages of lymph nodes. Because of this, lymph nodes are called defense barriers. Till now we have discussed lymph, lymphatic vessels, and lymph nodes. After that, we will learn about the physiology of a lymphatic system, where we will learn about the lymph flow inside the lymphatic vessels.
Explore our extensive library of over 1,800 video lectures to learn about a wide range of topics. Only on sqadia.com.